So here we go, then, Tony. Completely unplanned, unrehearsed interview and chat with you, really.
Yeah.
I guess, how long have I known you now?
I would think it's probably around 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years.
Actually, maybe 3 I've known of you, because November 19 was when eXp launched in the UK, right?
That's it, yeah.
So I watched with, from a distance, started stalking you and Joe Rylett and Ben Moore and Adam and others who were kind of part of that initial crew.
Yeah.
And obviously there was a launch party November 19. I remember that being some glitzy event in London.
Did you go to that?
No.
No, I didn't go to that either.
I'd sort of penciled it in thinking I'd love to go, but didn't. Obviously I was still employed and everything else. I had plenty of stuff going on in personal life as well, which I had to get ready to even really make eXp a thing for me to consider.
Yeah, okay. So what was your, I remember my first reaction to eXp, but I don't often ask this question. What was your first reaction when you saw this American model?
You kind of look at it and you think, well, where's the catch?
Yeah.
You're constantly expecting, this is why I probably stalked for a while from a distance, like probably most people do. You kind of end up looking at people and what they're doing and what they're performing at and what they really, putting on the market, how much they're selling, how much they're earning. And you're kind of expecting there to be then some sort of fallout, because it just seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a couple of times, but I think you find that then you dig down a little bit deeper and it clearly isn't too good to be true. It's actually what you're told is what you get, and everybody's on the same. There's no guessing that somebody's on 72% turnover or 70 or 68 or whatever. Everybody's on the same. I think that's what makes it quite individual and unique as well, because obviously in the employment environment, when I sat in an office with 6 other people, we're all on different pay structures.
Oh yeah.
And nobody talked about it.
Well, you used to get told not to, right? Have you ever had that?
Yeah.
Right, we're giving you a pay rise, but let's not make that a big deal in front of everyone else. Yeah.
Nothing to say downstairs.
Yeah.
Hush hush kind of approach. But what I like about this is the simplicity of it. Really is its advantage, but it's remarkably complex at the same time.
Yeah.
And remarkably clever. It's just so rewarding in so many different ways, above and beyond what just being an agent is all about.
Yeah.
The front end is obviously the glamorous side of exchanges and completions. There's so much more to it than that.
So, I know that you and I started talking about it obviously several months before you joined, which is often the case. It's a big decision for people. Was there any sort of one thing in particular that encouraged you to actually take that leap, or was it just a case of timing and
I don't know really. I mean, again, for brutal honesty, the other person I started following early doors was Mark Bentley.
Yeah.
And I remember in the first lockdown, Mark gave me some time on a Zoom call. Probably about March 20, April 20, something like that. I wasn't working, I was furloughed at the time. I had conversations with Ben. I had conversations with Adam. I met Adam actually just before lockdown in Grantham at a hotel, and we had a very brief chat about stuff. I think he'd been in Grantham seeing somebody else. So I don't know really what was there wasn't one single thing. For me, it just felt like the perfect vehicle to get to where I wanted to go and what I was doing, and what I thought I could do. So you sort of look at your employment role and think, okay, well, this actually removes a lot of the risk of wanting to set up your own office and all those other things. And probably about 5 or 6 years ago, there was talk about the office I was working in becoming available to purchase, and you start thinking, okay, well, how can I make that work?
was in the business for sale?
Potentially,
Right, okay.
Loosely speaking, and it's something I worked with. I was at the time as a value, and I was working with a guy who was the branch manager, and we'd had conversations about how could we make it work. But the only way I'd have ever really able to set up an office on the high street really is to borrow or invest with somebody 120 grand. I wouldn't have been doing it for myself then, because I never would have had that money.
Yeah.
So for me, this proved to be like a perfect vehicle to go from employee to actual business owner, doing the thing you love and you're passionate about every day.
Yeah.
But without the noose around your neck.
Yeah.
And the worst that could happen is that you end up failing. You've got to go back and get a job on the high street. Okay.
Yeah, I remember someone else actually said to me that, what would you do if it didn't work? And it was, I'd go and get a job again like I've got now. And they said, so your current plan A would be your new plan B.
Okay, yeah.
And if you keep moving in a direction where you keep making your current plan A your plan B, then you're probably going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Exactly as you've said, the worst case for me was I'd go back to probably not even a different job, probably back to the same company, the same job. Yeah. If you've done a good job, they're going to welcome you back with open arms. So I mean, when you rewind, if you can, I know a lot of water's passed under the bridge your time here. What did you want your business to look like when you joined eXp? What was in your mind?
I think for me it was a case of, as long as it replaced, I suppose, the existing income of the family, it was going to be seen as a positive step to make. So the first thing I did was look at what did I earn, what did I then need to do in a company to make that work, really? And for me, I set the bar quite low. For me, it was 2 completions a month.
Yeah.
Which means realistically probably 3 sales a month, and probably 4 listings a month, or 1 a week. And for me, that then meant that the pressure was kind of off, because I think the one problem with being an agent which has got a great big noose around the neck in terms of expense is they have to turn to volume.
Yeah.
When you turn to volume, you're going to lose on quality of service and that relationship building. So for me, when I set out, I wanted it to be something that was very personal, on a journey together with the clients, there for the good times and the bad times, and you feel that as well, and the bumps in the road, don't you? But for me, it was always about working with them in a relationship that meant that they would become your client for life.
Yeah.
And more importantly, they would also happily put your name into conversation when they know friends or other people in the area who are looking at selling or wanted some advice. And I don't always mean just selling. For me, I'm quite happy to take time out and go and sit with somebody for half an hour if they've had a part exchange valuation done by 3 high street agents. And I just want a bit of a sanity check or a bit of a conversation. I'm happy to do that. So, but that half an hour will be well worth its time in the future when they then say, do you know what, Tony, it wasn't nothing in it for him, but he came out, he sat down with me, we talked me through it a little bit, we chose to do it or we chose not to do it, but nonetheless he came and helped me. Yeah. And when people start talking to you positively, or about you positively when you're not in the room, I think you've got every chance of building a business which can be whatever you want it to be, without investing heavily in advertising and marketing. Because you know what I say about marketing, you spend 100 quid on 5 different campaigns, something works, but which 20 quid works? Nobody knows, really. So at least with recommendation business, you know what works.
Yes. Well, I mean, we're saying this, and before we started recording, we've had a coffee in Grantham, right? Mm-hmm. And in that coffee shop, we were there for maybe an hour, had probably 4 people say hello to you. One, I'm reluctant to say on camera, but one, you weren't even sure. You're thinking, I think they recognised me from the socials or something. And another person that came over and actually did genuinely say, I've given your name to somebody else this week. So it's a real eye-opener for me to head up this way and actually see that in action.
It's crazy, because all I consider myself doing really is nothing more than I was doing when I was employed. Just do the same work, the same ethic, the same hard work and dedication and commitment to those clients. The difference is now it's for me and the family, not for shareholders, stock price, directors, levels of management, whatever else it goes with it. No problem with that sort of structure at all. I just think there's definitely, that sense of achievement is far, far greater when you're doing it for yourself.
And that sense of pride in the job. I think. I mean, that's certainly something that I look back now and sort of cringe sometimes at. I remember looking after so many vendors that probably, in all honesty, if we'd been playing Guess Who and you'd have given me pictures of them all, I could probably only name a third of them at one point. Whereas now, like we've experienced in the coffee shop, the lady that came over to say hello, that was no chore for you to sit and have a chat. It was a lovely lady, and we're just having a chat in a coffee shop, right? There was no selling involved. It was just, hey, how you doing? And
I'm the least salesy estate agent there is. For me, it's just a case of I live by one simple motto, really, is just doing the right things at the right time. And I mean, put yourself into the seller's shoes. What is the right thing for the seller first and foremost? And that's what you've got to action. There's no point in trying to manipulate the offers to look like it's better for one person because it might be perceived to be a short. You've got to do the right thing for the seller. If you're in their shoes, what would you want to do? And I think if you live by that motto, generally you'll do the right things.
I think it certainly helps when you're not going back to an office that are then going to say, did you get that listing? And you have to say, well, do you know what? I feel like maybe now wasn't the right time for them to list that. I've told them to wait until February, or I've told them just to keep an eye on the market, or wait until they've put this in place, because it's all about, well, you didn't get that signature.
I think so. I think when I go back again to certain employment days, obviously there were certain targets to hit, and I appreciate they've obviously got to have target structures in place for employees, get that completely. But it doesn't mean it's always the right thing for the client. And ultimately that's the person who's paying the wage, that's the person who you're trying to affect the life of in a positive, or it might be a tough time in their life, you've got to try and help them as best you can. I had a conversation with somebody the other evening, and we spoke last in October, just after the mini budget, and everything was going belly up, and we sort of said, look, it's probably not the best time. So we caught up again just before Christmas, we've caught up again at the end of January, early February, just to update him on what's changing. We've now decided it's the right time. He'd had other agents out to see him, and no doubt he's probably had his ear bent every day by certain agents to, have you made a decision, are you going to sign this contract? But there was no point in listing a house probably in October or November realistically, or reducing a price for that matter in October, November, really, if the room was empty of buyers?
Yeah, I think on similar conversations, unless somebody's motivation was very specific, I've got a job to start in February, I'm moving to New Zealand, unless it was absolutely essential, then you give them the advice that you would give any friend, which is...
I'll just see how it pans out.
Let's hold fire and let's just...
And then we'll catch up, we'll review. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. I used to beat myself up black and blue about not winning instructions. You know, when you're targeted to hit a certain number every month and you don't get it, I'd wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat because I'd read an email before I went to sleep or something stupid, you know, and you sort of look back, probably didn't realise at the time just how much damage it was doing.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
Because you pride yourself on achieving all the time. Of course, in those certain environments, it's, you know, 50 grand apartment, £1 million house, and everything in between.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say you can't be an agent who tries to dedicate your time to the you know, I'm a family man in Grantham. That's what I want to sell. Family homes. It makes a lot of sense. I know about the schooling and, you know, all the connections you need for work to be able to get to London and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I've tried to do as well, is structure my business to look like a bit like me, a reflection of me really. It's all about being that family man in Grantham.
Well, I think the advice I give to people is often to look at where their strengths and weaknesses are and work around that. You know, if you've never worked in the, you know, the £2 million plus market, then I'd strongly recommend when you launch your own business for the first time, you don't go in out of your depth and try and do that. That doesn't mean you can't gravitate towards that over time. I'm very much a bread and butter man. You know, I don't give me 2-bedroom terrace and a 3-bedroom semi over a £2 million house any day of the week. I know what I'm doing. I know the clients. I know how to conduct myself.
Those days can come. Those opportunities can come. But I think you've always got to have again, an indication of what your CV looks like in terms of what's out there in the public domain as well. So if you are selling stuff typically between £200,000 and £400,000 and it's a £2 million listing, it looks like the odd one out, doesn't it? And you know, you're not going to be engaging with many people who've got £2 million budgets.
That's right.
If you've only got £200,000 to £400,000.
I wouldn't even know where to start, like with the negotiation. Like if a house is on the market for £2.5 million and somebody offered 2.4, I'm just going to take it. They've offered you 2.4 million. There's no, all of a sudden that 100 grand, I wouldn't understand. But take it. They've offered you 2.4 million.
I think you have to do what you're comfortable with. And I think this probably comes back to the way I wanted the business to look. I wanted it to be something that was a bit of a reflection of what I was all about. You know? We do a lot of social media. We've done a lot of social media for a lot of years. But the person you get on social media isn't different to the person that turns up at your door. It's not like you're getting some sort of game show host on video. And then
but I've done that and got that wrong before. I've watched people who are, you know, really, and I use Ben as an example. Ben presents in, you know, you could pick up Ben, put him in his own Channel 4 programme and he'd be able to just run his own show. And I remember joining and trying to present like Ben, and I'd look back, I'd go, I just look like a poorer version of Ben who doesn't really know what he's doing, looks slightly less comfortable in front of camera. And then when I started relaxing and being me, I'm quite grumpy sometimes. You know, actually me just doing my videos and being a bit grumpy some days, all of a sudden then that would get engagement with a certain sort of type of client that were, you know,
the grumpy ones.
The grumpy ones. Probably. Or just, you know, but I remember just thinking, and the more you're yourself, the easier it is. You don't necessarily have to, you know, stress about putting on that facade all the time.
And I think the other thing about, you know, like video, while we're talking about that, it works really well as a filter. You know, you can get people to gravitate towards you by what they see and what they sort of become familiar with, and you become familiar to them, which is what happens in the coffee shop today. And then when it comes to that moment in time where they are thinking about getting some advice about selling or mortgages or remortgaging or downsizing, whatever that time comes where they need you, that seed's already set.
Well, you say the scene's already set, right? So again, we went out for coffee earlier. You obviously know Grantham, but if you didn't know Grantham, if you came to where I live in Margate, how would you choose what coffee shop to go in?
It would always be a local independent.
But you'd walk up and down, look in the windows, right? And you'd go, okay, there's 3 or 4 faces in there I like the look of. Nice environment, I'm going to go in there and grab a coffee. And for me, the replacement of the shop window now, where the high street is rather moribund, it's now you're looking for another window, and the window, if I'm looking for an agent in your area, is your social media and me deciding, okay, Tony says a lot that I like, or Tony comes across really well, I've got that no like and trust.
I don't really like him, so they don't even
We're going to clash. They
don't even get in touch with you, so you never even cross swords.
Never even hear of them.
No, absolutely. It's a perfect filter.
So that's how you wanted your business to look. Now the nice thing is now we get to almost take the crystal ball away and fast forward 2 years. Give us a summary, mate, because I know it's been pretty successful.
It's been all right. It's been.
I think you're underplaying that a little bit, Tony.
It's been 19 months, pretty much since launch. So obviously you start with that eagerness and enthusiasm, and I was looking to start with a couple of listings under my belt before we really started. which was great because I mean on day one we had something to sell, and they went pretty well and pretty quickly. A couple more listings followed. So by the end of 2021, we'd exchanged on 15 and completed on 15 transactions. So between mid-June and December, there was 15. But of course, you've got to get them on the market, you've got to sell them, you've got to convey them. So our first completion was at the end of September. So it was an okay start. What was really interesting was the next 6 months, because the next 6 months it doubled on top of what it had done in that first 6 months.
Yeah.
So there was more listings, there was definitely more sales, there was bigger pipelines to play with. It's still a very good marketplace, of course, and you could argue it's been pretty easy for most agents. But what I've tried to do from the outset, well, what I've done from the outset is make sure that what I had that idea of how my business looks is still what it looks like today. So even though properties were flying off the shelves and we could have drawn a picture of a house in wax crayon and slapped it on Rightmove and it would have sold, I still professionally photographed them all regardless of price point.
You still kept the standard very high.
Yeah. I wanted to be sort of almost like the Savills Knight Frank Fine and Country, but for the everyday person.
Yeah.
So it's professionally photographed, video toured, high quality floor plans, decent write-ups, no shortcuts really, doing a full job. And I think that's interesting because that starts to build you a bit of people look at how you market, and they want a bit of that for their own house as well. So that's where I think we start to really gain a bit of momentum.
So not necessarily just thinking, well, this one's I can take a picture on my iPhone, list it on Rightmove and it will sell, but actually thinking about the perception for future sellers as well.
For future sellers, because I think in the future there will be people who look at how you market properties in the good times, in the whatever else, and it might be 4 years down the line yet, but they'll see, again, everything you list at the minute is going to leave an indelible mark as your CV for the future.
Yeah.
So everything's sort of going to be in the ether for people to look at. So you've got to, for me, it was about making sure there was cutting no corners. I had some great help, don't get me wrong. I had people like Dean, my photographer, who I'd worked with for a few years in my previous employed role, who gave me sort of almost a 6-month credit account, so I could do all my pro pictures on all my jobs, help with cash flow, no end.
Yeah.
Settled up. It wasn't a gift. This was just a helping hand, and that was great as well because that gave me that chance to sort of get every property professionally photographed, and as cash started to come through the business, get him settled up and start 2021 with a blank account, if you like. My energy assessor did the same. I've done the same since for a local mortgage advisor.
Yeah.
It's a lovely feeling because you're helping somebody on their journey. It's really, really great. So I can see why Dean did it. But fast forward a little further now, we're 150 listings in. I think we've got 6 or 7 which are pre-market, ready to market. So all the photographs are done, the video's done, the text is done, the agency's signed, ID's in. If they see something tomorrow they really like, one press of the button, we're up and running. And I think we've just completed on our 104th house sale, which really is since the end of September, let's say October. So that's 2 months, so 15 months. So yeah, it's not big numbers when you look at it from a high street office point of view.
I think I'm well ingrained in what a self-employed or solo business owner should be doing now. So for me, that sounds like a big number. But you're right, if someone's watching this and they work in like I always use Connells as an example, they'll be thinking, well, we sell 25 every single month.
Yeah, my old employer would be 25 a month, 30 a month or whatever. But you've got to remember that these bigger offices, so to scale that into Grantham, if you like, the eXp model in Grantham in 2022 was the 3rd place agent, behind 2 very well established agents. One of them was my former employer and one was a former employer from years ago. Yeah. And that puts us ahead of quite a lot of established agents, and it's only me and one other really doing that in the Grantham area, and that's a guy called Rob. But when you collectively put together the forces, you've got to look at that as an employer at some of these other agencies now and go, how are they achieving that? Just the 2 of them?
Yeah.
Against our team of 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever it might be in that office, with great overheads. Yeah. Massive overheads. And as the market starts to harden and change and is different this year, there's always going to be this sense of, okay, well, now money's becoming a bit more of a focus and a priority. It was easy to come by before, might not be so easy to come by in the next 12 months. Yeah, and yet though they're set up to need to continually churn volume, that high volume, If the volume's not there, like it wasn't at the back end of last year, that can only put some people's jobs potentially at risk.
So then, from your perspective, I guess agents that are maybe looking at eXp or any other sort of model and thinking about giving it a go themselves could easily be thinking, well, the timing's not right because the market's slowed up. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well,
that's an opportunity.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
I think the difficulty with eXp probably in the last 12 months was that the pipelines in their employed offices were bursting to the seams. Yeah, and the commission pot for them in there was quite substantial.
Getting slaps on the back by the director every morning and smiles on everyone's faces.
Yeah. And now we face a little bit of a different marketplace, and we face a sort of a bit more uncertainty. And there's a lot of agents, 80% of agents I would suspect who work in high street offices today have never worked in a difficult market.
Yep.
Maybe similar numbers of managers have never worked in a difficult marketplace, because it's been 13, 14 years, isn't it, since we last had a real difficult time.
Yep.
Could even say 15 years now, we're in 2023. So
Yep.
I think those who have got the experience of navigating those rougher seas will have something to fall back on that most other agents in the make won't. Their initial reaction will be reduce price, reduce price, reduce price. Is that the right thing to do? Like pre-Christmas reduce?
What we were talking about earlier, yeah, that's right.
I don't think it was the right time to do it.
Yeah.
That's a bit like shouting into a room that's empty an announcement.
Yeah.
Well, if the room's empty, who's fucking listening? Sorry, who's listening?
So bleep that, don't you?
Sorry. But who's listening? At least in January, you could have an idea as to whether there's people actually listening, and then you can make your adjustments and do what you need to do.
Again, and I'm not constantly knocking traditional corporate agency, but frankly, there would have been a target for the amount of, not only how many we list each month, but also if we're listing 40 in a month, we want to be reducing 15.
Yeah, and again, I've had some times in some offices where people were paid to get reductions.
Yeah.
They were paid to get listings. And there's a problem there again for the client. The problem is somebody's coming out and, provided you sign that, Mr. Gunn, you don't know it, but I get paid some commission my next pay packet.
Regardless, yeah.
And if it's on for 25% too much money or 20% or 10% too much money, the negotiator who gets a reduction out of you the first time is going to get a little kickback, and then when the second negotiator gets a further reduction out of you, they'll get kickback.
Yeah.
It's before you even bloody sold your house.
Yeah, that's right.
How's that right?
Yeah, that's right.
I think still believe that the basis of a good house marketing process is that your buyer is often found in that first 2 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
When you're fresh and you're new and you're different, rather than when you're stale at 10, 14, 16, 20 weeks old.
It's like selling apples, right? The best time selling apples the second
Fresh
you picked
ones.
off the tree. Yeah, the
Fresh
longer
ones.
it sits there, the more rotten
Less
it gets,
appealing,
unfortunately.
yeah,
My view on it is, see, the market is clearly tougher than it was last year, and I've heard people say that last year was easy, or that some of us got lucky, etc., etc. But I think selling houses was easy last year, but you still have to be the agent chosen to sell it. So
I think there's a certain degree of that. 21 was easier than 22. I think 22 had a noticeable change in it around the summertime.
yeah,
I think we were hearing all the time about energy prices and fuel costs.
interest rates.
Interest rates were going up, and they'd already etched up, and there was bigger rises to come, and inflation was out of control, and God knows what else. So I think there was a little bit of wind still in the sails probably by about June, July.
Yeah.
I think as we hit the summer holidays, any wind that was in that was certainly taken out of it by quasi-cartoon.
And then I guess you hope for sort of September to be okay, and then we obviously had the passing of the Queen, which was
probably delayed things by about 2 or 3 weeks. With the greatest of respect.
then a mini budget, or after, I can't remember.
Was post,
That was after, and then a World Cup just before Christmas. And that's a sort of a perfect storm for a bad Q3 and Q4, isn't it, really, when you think about it?
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think it probably meant that we had a bit of built-up tension come the start of 2023. I think 2023 started really optimistically.
Yeah, likewise.
There's a lot of good news out there if you're prepared to dig for it. There's a lot of news outlets which just don't seem to turn on to good news, which is fine. But our job, I think, is to educate local people in our area about what interest rate rises today mean.
I think people, people will always need to move, and it's always that cliche, isn't it? But you're always going to get deaths, you're always going to get divorces, families are going to get bigger, families are going to get smaller, people are going to need to relocate. So, you often get that shock to the system, which is arguably what the interest rates in the last 6 months has done. But now, if you've got to move, you've got to move. And
I think obviously the people it impinges on most is those coming into the marketplace and those coming out the other end, generally speaking. Those in the middle, if they're selling for more, they're having to pay more. If they're selling for less, they're probably paying less on their next move. The interest rate thing will be interesting, I think, for most who have probably bought in the last 12 to 18 months when they start to look at their remortgage options in the next 6 to 12 months. And the rates they're being offered are not quite as attractive as they were on in the first instance. But we will see. I mean, the likelihood is that if they've had the house now for 12 to 18 months, it's probably worth more than it was when they bought it.
Yeah.
So there'll be a bit of an offset of balance there. But I think, like you just said, the reasons for people needing to sell or move never go away, regardless of the market conditions.
Yeah.
I think the key is how you work with those people and how you educate them. Today the interest rates have gone up to 4%, but yet in the last couple of days, a lot of major lenders have reduced their rates. Well, those major lenders would have known that the interest rates were going up today by 0.5%, but they've still chosen to reduce their rates. That tells me the door is open and they want to do business.
Yeah.
If they start putting the rates up, yes, that's going to turn the tap off a little bit. And if they pull their products, that turns the tap off altogether. And that's obviously what happened post mini budget in the back end of September.
Yeah.
and that's what spooks buyers.
But then, so even if, you know, let's paint a bleak picture of what the market could look like. I'm thinking here that you set up your business on the basis that as long as you could sell 2 a month, you'd be earning what you used to earn.
Yeah.
Clearly you're now selling, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 a month,
Yeah,
something like that. Okay, there we go.
Fair assessment.
So if I'm you, I'm thinking, okay, even if the market halves and I'm doing 5 instead of 10, I'm still making a lot more money than used to make.
Yeah.
Whereas I look at branches that rely on selling 30 a month and I wonder how capable they are of running if they can only do 15.
But yeah, agreed.
Because I think a lot of most agencies I work with work on like a profit. It used to be 28%. You used to try and aim for 28% profit margin. I know a lot of those are down to like 20, 18%.
There's been constant squeeze on that, hasn't it?
Doesn't take much of a swing, does it? Before
the purple bricks effect, really, which of course has never proven successful. I don't think in our area particularly. We've got a good operator now in our area, but you know, the argument is the company overall doesn't make anything. So you know, you can't run that forever like that because people aren't going to keep on putting the money into it unless there's actually some sort of sign of a return. But I think a lot of agents have naturally swayed towards, rather than proving and demonstrating their value and what they're bringing to the process for the seller and what advantages and skills they can add, and also what weight they can take off the seller's shoulders, they're just quite prepared to turn to a volume model and drop the pants on fee.
And not, again, I saw a post yesterday on socials about someone doing a half price fee, you know, canvassing material or something. You might have seen the same one as I did.
I think I did.
I don't want to credit the author, but it's you look and you think, well, if you're halving your fee, you've got to do twice as many transactions just to stand still. I mean, that's a horrendous position to be in. I'd rather double my fee.
Yeah, and how do you double your output with the same staff?
Yeah,
or less?
Yeah.
Because you've had to let some of them go because you haven't got enough cash flow.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of a sticking plaster on a dam, really, doesn't it? I'm not sure it's the right solution.
No, I don't think it is.
But looking at obviously how things have gone for you, and I know, so you won't want to say it, but you were Agent of the Year at our awards do this year, which I know you're humble about, but I guess proud of as well.
Oh, remarkably proud. They both sit on my unit at home on side, so I say both because in 2021 I was
here he goes.
In 2022, it just blew me away. You know, there was I think it was 9 awards on the night, and I was nominated for 4, and I didn't win the first 3. So when you get to the last award and you're thinking, well, I'm nominated again, it's just not my night tonight. You know, it's just not going to be. And then your name's called out, it just blew me away, because that is something that was voted for. Every agent within eXp was given a vote, whether they chose to vote or not, so they call. Yeah. And somehow I got more votes than somebody else.
I don't know, I think that's the one to win. I mean, there's some awards and people who won the awards. I didn't really see anything where I thought that everyone who won an award at the event thoroughly deserved it. But I think agent, it's a little bit like winning player, isn't it? There's something about it that means something to you personally, because you know it's not just a boardroom deciding who's our favourite, but actually it's individuals across the whole of the country and the whole of the network.
Peers, really. It's just sort of those who are doing what you're doing and recognising that.
I remember my hands, mate, I think I said to you on the night, were hurting because I was poised for you to win it, and then when you did, I just started beating my hands together like a lunatic.
I do need to send out some £20 notes to about 50 people.
That might be a nice idea. Guarantee the win next year as well.
Guaranteed me a vote. No, there was nothing like that. But yeah, it was very, very humbling. An amazing night. I mean, there's a weird thing about the eXp thing, because you kind of think, oh yeah, you're working on your own, working for yourself. No, far from it. I've never felt more part of a team. And I don't just mean the eXp crew. I mean above and beyond that. Even like my wife now works with me. So when I first started, she had her own little cleaning business, which was going great. She was happy. But she's now joined me and working with me. I mentioned about the photographer who's part of the team. I mentioned about Peter, who's part of the team, the energy assessor. I've got a fantastic conveyancer who's part of the team. You know, she's employed, not by me. She's employed by her own employee, but we work together countless times. You know, she's just brilliant, and I only turned to her because of the way she looked after me when I was doing my own house purchase. She was just exceptional, and she delivers that all the time now for all my clients. And I think that's important, because I think a lot of the time the difficulties that come with the transaction are probably not agent-led problems; they're probably conveyancing-led problems. So having the right conveyancer in your corner for that fight is definitely very, very
massive
important.
asset. Yeah, it's a massive asset.
Sales progressor, phenomenal woman, kept together more than I care to imagine. You know, when I'm looking at it thinking, this ain't happening. This is just not happening.
Mate, I outsource my sales progression to the same people you do. I work with Kirsty there, whereas you work with Ginny. I spend less than 1% of my time worrying about sales progression because they look after it for me, and I've never had a client phone and say that something hasn't happened and not phoned them and had a perfectly legitimate reason for why certain things haven't happened. They pretty much either make the call I would have made in their shoes or a better call.
Yeah, and they know the questions to ask.
Yeah.
The real telling questions to ask. Because I think, again, going back to nothing more frustrating in my mind, you know, you work hard in an estate agency listing a property. I'm thinking now like an employed role. You work hard in an employed role, you list the property, you get viewings, you get an offer, you get it sold, you get it in the pipeline. And poor old experienced sales manager, who's probably got the most years experience in the office, is challenged with sales progression. But you know, has never worked in a conveyancing office, but has done lots of conveyancing progression, sales progression. But sometimes you've got to wonder whether a call to say, is there any update this week, is as pertinent as that call saying, right, okay, last week you told me this week you said you might be at this point, where are we actually at? From somebody, I'm lucky that the person I work with very closely was a conveyancing solicitor for 15 years. There's no pulling the wool over her eyes. If a solicitor is sending her down a dark track, woe behold that solicitor, because she'll find out, she'll come back and she'll jump on you. And it's all for the good of the client. That's what we've got to keep going back to. Everything is for the good of the client. So why have the best energy assessor? Because I know we'll get the right energy assessment result out of it. It's for the good of the client. Why have the best photographs? Because it's for the good of the client. Same with Sharon. Why have the best conveyancer? I believe in this East Midlands area, for the good of the client. And I've never felt more part of a team. It really is, and that's without adding in the eXp levels. So here, I'm not too far from another eXp agent in Great Gunnerby. He's about half a mile away from where I live. We've got a great relationship. We speak to each other frequently. He often helps me out if we're away, and if he's away, I'll try and help him out. With keys and perhaps the odd viewing and stuff now and again. If I diary's too busy, because sometimes it becomes fully booked for 12 days in advance or even 2 weeks in advance. Rob's been great at picking up those that I can't get to. And again, that's in my mind much better helping two people. Good for him, good for you, good for the. Yeah, I think so. It's good for the client. Again, come back to that. It's the perfect thing. If the client's prepared to wait, that's even better for me. But that's not necessarily for the good of the client for everybody. So, for me, like I said, I've never felt more part of a team. And I look at people like you guys, yourself. You're always on the end of the phone if I need you, or on the end of a WhatsApp, or today coming up to meet us. Adam's been fantastic. Claire down the road at Grimsby. It's miles away from here, really. But we speak pretty frequently.
It's funny you saying down the road to Claire, because I was thinking of Claire as being miles up the road for me. But
Claire won't mind me saying, but Grimsby's like it's the backside of the country.
You're looking around to see who might
looking
over here.
Black and white shirt on, but I'm a Lincoln fan, so I'm probably allowed to say that about Grimsby because that's our nearest rivalry, really. Linda up in Sheffield, and even people like Ian Wynne-Jones up in North Wales, Ali Harper up in the North East. Just people you start to build really great time with. Daisy down, didn't really know Daisy up until the last Christmas party, but we sort of got together, had a few drinks in the afternoon. It was a bit of a group of us, and it's full well that if you've got something you need to sort out, you can lean on them.
I showed someone the other day live. I was with an agent, and we had a question about the model and the setup, and I didn't know the answer to it. So I thought we'd put it to the test. I put the question to Workplace, which is where we all communicate with one another, and asked a question about the legal side of setting up his business, something I didn't know the answer to. We logged back in 6 minutes later, 20 comments on people saying, "Oh, do this, do that," and it was all largely all giving the same advice actually. So I was like, look, 15 of the however many people have posted have all said to do this, so that's looking good. And to actually be confident enough in it to better sort of actually live test it like that in front of someone, and I really am. I just know I'm going to get instant responses.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never been let down by that. It's rare I have to go in there and sort of ask a generic question, but if you needed to, for whatever reason, on anything, somebody will have the answer for you.
Mate, I did it
without the support team, like people like Liv and Lauren, and there's just so many of them that you don't sort of always see. They aren't on the forefront, but they're making it tick in the background as well.
It's odd that, probably like you, I've worked in companies, in offices where you're on a team commission or there's a team bonus, and actually you and I might be linked to the better you do, the more I earn, etc., etc. And you still get that backbiting and the people trying to maybe take credit for things they haven't done or sabotage your deals or whatever. We've seen it all in estate agency, and it's not all bleak. No. I just love it, but now, interesting enough, I'm at eXp, where the people that you're talking about actually have no connection to what you're earning or necessary financial interest in how well Tony Ruby performs, and you likewise with them. And yet all of a sudden, without that financial link, people seem to have that sense of wanting to help each other more than anywhere else I've ever been. What do you put that down to then?
I don't know really. I suppose it's that...
Putting on the spot there if you've never thought about it. But.
I think it's probably to do with the fact that we've all been in those shoes. You know, so if somebody's on the early part of their journey, and next week we've got some great training across the world, haven't we?
Yeah.
It must be 2 sessions a day. And I think I'm right in saying that prospective agents can come in on a guest pass and see some of the training. This is all agent-led training. This is not people who are paid to be trainers. And that says a lot. You know, the fact that there's 10 sessions over a week from different agents prepared to give up some time to help other agents along in an auditorium which might be 15 people or 100 people, we don't know yet until we get there, just says a lot about the people who are putting their time forward for that, because they want to help these people along. You know, and there'll be different sessions on all sorts, and it might be about securing valuations or even securing the instruction or whatever it might be, and everything in between. I just think the fact that agents want to give up their time and don't have to, they're under no pressure to. You say no, you say no. But they still want to do that, and you can fill a week, and I think they've got plans for a second week with other subjects. I think like letter touting and all that sort of stuff, which I think you're leading as well. I think that's just amazing. Because if I went to my old employer of old, and just said, right, would you mind doing a session on the perfect viewing, or would you do a session for me on the perfect applicant registration or something like that, I think they'd say no. And yet they're paid to do the job.
Very likely.
We're not.
Or deliver the training, or
we want to help each other.
The alternative. I think there's a mutual respect that everybody's taking the leap. And I tell you, the place I see that the most is, I don't want to say I grew up around boxing gyms. I'd make it sound like I think
on the dark streets.
When I was young, I did some boxing, and then when I got to sort of my late 20s, I took it back up again. So there we go.
Okay.
But the environment you get there is, I think the misconception is that they're really aggressive, really intimidating places. The reality is, anyone will tell you, the second you walk into the boxing gym, whether you're good or useless, you get the same respect from everyone, because everyone else is walking past and you've walked in. So you get that respect, you know. And so it's not about who's the toughest, who's the quickest. It's everyone. It always feels like a level playing field. I guess I feel like that at eXp. And it might be a funny comparison, but I feel like, do you know what? Everyone sits in an office saying what they would do if they had their own business, and there's all this bravado, but there's only a select few of us that actually roll up our sleeves and are brave enough to go out and do it. So I feel like I instantly respect anybody who gives it a go, and that includes, if I'm honest, that even includes when I see people give it a go with another model that isn't eXp. I still think, good on you.
Anybody who's doing this right now for eXp particularly, we know they've got 2 years minimum experience, which means they've probably come out of an agency job, which is probably for the last couple of years been very secure. So I think anybody who's giving that up and walking away from it can either be deemed mad or crazy, and that's probably what the employer would say. But the reality is, unless you back yourself in life, how are you going to really make a difference and change? I'll go back to, again, previous days. As a family, if we wanted to save £1,000 in a year, it would be nigh on impossible. Seriously, it was so hard just to save £100 a month. You'd be waiting for payday. You know, payday would, and invariably in that cycle, especially more recently, if I was still employed now, with the gas prices, electric prices, inflation, food prices are where they are, diesel prices where they are, would have been, every month would have been further into debt. Every month, and that's a difficult spiral to get out of.
Mate, so I won't even talk about saving £80 a month. I feel like when I started eXp, I was about 30 grand in debt. Manageable debt across credit cards and all sorts of things. It wasn't anything that was like overwhelming, but I was. And largely, I look back and I think that's because every living expense that we had, every holiday we had went on a credit card, everything that, they're treats, but they kind of feel like they're close to essentials when you're a family person, right? To get out and get your family abroad, etc., once a year at least. And I look back, and that wasn't because I went out and spent a load of money, because every month I was just having to dip into the credit a little bit. And the example we were talking about again earlier, it's going to sound like we're in this coffee shop for a lot longer than we were, but it's like a bald tyre. Bald tyre being the difference between being able to save some money one month or having to be on the line of I've got nothing left. And it's bizarre when you start making more money, how quickly your attitude towards that change. If my boiler starts to rattle now, all right, I'm not pleased, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it, because I know luckily the funds are there that I can take care of that when I need to. For me, it's not about Lamborghinis and Ferraris. Lovely, don't get me wrong.
No, far from it. This for me, I think, was always, go back to a little bit about what I wanted it to look like. It was just about really, I suppose, building, dare I say, an exit. You know, what does your exit look like out of the working life?
Yeah.
And if you go back again to employed days, you think about the workplace pension and the state pension you'll get when you're probably at my age, 67 to 70.
They're going to push that back, aren't they? Yeah, that's going to be...
Yeah, that's a long time to be at work with not a lot of time to really enjoy what you've worked for, and if you have got any time, you're not going to have any money to enjoy the time. So something had to change. Something really, really had to change, and it was in my hands. And I think that was probably brought home a little bit by like the lockdown and furlough and all that sort of stuff. You know, 1 minute you're employed and you're earning okay, 1 minute you're told you were going to be sent home from work and you get 75%. Thankfully we were able to get through it, because obviously you're not spending anything on going out anywhere because we couldn't. You start thinking, crikey, my whole family's life is in somebody else's
hands. Yeah.
They press a button to say yes.
It's like an axe over your head, isn't it? Like, and someone else is going to choose whether to drop it.
I was like, well, how am I going to really, really change it? And this is where the eXp kind of came into my life at that time, where you're sort of looking at these things and thinking, well, okay, that looks like it all fits. And then it's just, how do you make that look? And I was genuinely probably about 18 months between knowing what I wanted to do and being able to do it. There was things going on in the background which I had to get straight and sorted. I had a house to sell with an ex, which was a challenge in its own right, and then had to secure the house that we were living in, had done for about 8 years as a family. We didn't want to move, really. There was some challenges though, because it turned out that, you know, the mortgage on the place hadn't been paid properly on time, so we had a couple of months of arrears and everything else. So it was never going to be straightforward from the mortgage point of view. But again, I got in touch with a guy called Roger, who's another one of my go-to mortgage advisors, and he fixed things. You know, he sort of got us into a place where we could get a mortgage with a high street lender. Yeah. I spoke to 6 or 7 other mortgage advisors, and all of them had mentioned Bluestone and 6.5%, 7%. You're thinking, well, we just can't do it.
That sounds all right now, that rate.
It does. So when Roger came into it, that was the first stepping stone sort of put into place. And I remember we exchanged on March the 17th, and I said to the missus, got up, literally woke up in bed, and I said, I'm going to send my notice in today. And within 5 minutes I'd sent my notice in, and within 5 minutes later I got an email back from the managing director saying, when can we meet? This was at like 7:10 in the morning. So I think they knew it was coming. But I was clear with my employer.
I think when you get that email, you know what what that one means.
I knew. I didn't. It wasn't my notice given in. I just said I needed to have a chat with him, but I'd not hidden anything from them. I'd said for a while I had an ambition to earn a certain amount of money. Yeah. And that just was never going to be possible in the employed environment.
Well, I think that's the thing. I mean, they've got two choices there, haven't they? Which is either try and create an opportunity for you to go and do that, which could be a partnership or equity.
Yeah. And if they'd done that, I might not be here.
I bet you wouldn't. No. You know, I remember our conversations. I'm sure if they said here's an equity stake in the business, we're going to up your salary by 25%. We're going to, then all of a sudden, then it becomes too
good to walk away.
Yeah, a little bit too good. It's like bronze handcuffs, isn't it? It's not gold handcuffs, but it's bronze handcuffs.
The risk grows even further.
It's just enough. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, look, mate. Honestly, how well you've done over the last few years is, it's not. I mean, it might have surprised you. I don't think it's surprised any of us. I think we always knew you were going to do well, mate, and just from the conversations we had. But seeing your operation today and how your business is set up, you know, it's no joke. You're not just going on social media and filming yourself and picking up listings. I've seen the structure of how you manage your listings, how you do all your vow prep, and I think any prospective agent, as well as our current agent, could learn a lot from how you've set up your business. And arguably, you're too humble, you know. And I think you should be probably a little bit louder and prouder about what you've achieved, because to be one of the top agents at eXp, which bear in mind is a group of 350 plus people who've all backed themselves enough to go self-employed, to be one of the top agents in that environment is no joke. No. You and I were talking for given around about a year before you joined. And I think that's maybe a mistake some people made. Yes, you can contact eXp and join today and be up and running in a fortnight if we need to. If somebody was to lose a job or whatever, and we can get somebody up and running fairly quickly. But I feel like there's a lot of value in people starting to explore it like you did, well in advance of actually being able, the rubber hit the road.
I suppose there's like a due diligence element that I sort of went through, really. First and foremost, is it as credible as it says it is, or is it actually what it believes it is? Because obviously it was new. Nobody had really heard of it in this country. I did speak to another one who was self-employed, and they never got back to me. I'm not saying that would have changed anything, because I was pretty sure I wanted to do what I was going to do, but I needed to just do a sanity check, just check
makes
it out.
sense. Yeah.
And then I started working on some numbers and sort of working it backwards really, so that I understood what my pressures would be, I suppose, what your pressure points would need to be. There's no targets. I mean, I don't worry too much about what's going on. I just deal with what's coming in and try to react to it, I suppose. But I think that it does take a while. You know, not every agent is going to jump straight on it.
Yeah.
And I think it is there'll be some who can sort of give a month's notice and quite happy after one conversation to jack the job in.
But I guess having been through it, you'd be able to say that just by reaching out and starting that conversation, there was a value to being able to start to plan 6 months to a year in advance.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But also, hopefully, reconfirm that we weren't on your case every 2 weeks saying, what are you doing now? Tony, you're joining. It was very much
hard sell. If I wanted to come, I was coming. If I didn't want to come, there was no pressure to. You certainly felt like you were wanted in terms of respects of how much time you dedicate to sort of conversation. Don't just mean yourself here, but I'm talking about Adam, Mark, Ben. I didn't probably realise the implications then of flirting with several different sponsors, but I didn't know. I didn't know from the outside looking in. You just don't know. But I think you sort of get to a point where you go, do you know what? All these people can't be wrong.
Yeah,
they can't be wrong.
There's too many smart people for it to be wrong. You take Mark Bennett as an example. I mean, he was.
And the credibility of someone like Mark. Property Mark chairman. You look at it and going. I remember saying to the wife, I said, "This is the sort of calibre of individual that's there." I'm not talking about.
You didn't show my profile then.
I didn't sort of say to him, it's like a load of UPVC double glazing salespeople at a conference. It was just, this is the sort of calibre of individual. Liana Laporte, another great example.
Oh, mate, it's getting higher and higher and higher.
Industry standard is right up here. Then you look at some of the people who are now coming on board and sort of being attracted towards it as well, and some names that we probably can't mention, but you sort of think, right, we're making some real noise. And I just can't wait to see what the future holds, really. I mean, for me, this is not about revolutionising the industry. I think it's just about giving people, hard-working, good quality agents, opportunities.
An opportunity,
choices.
Yeah.
Stay where you are and carry on. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, that's
and
great.
It is fine as well.
Yeah,
I always think
fine.
it's really important not to bash that, because if you're 10 out of 10 you're happy at work, then good for you. Because
spend so much time at work, you need to be happy.
Yeah.
But if you're in somewhere, and you've been in offices where it's a bind going in. You know full well it's not going to be a great day before the day was in.
I got there, and that's when I joined eXp, is when I had enough of that side of things. But I will also look back and be glad I did it, because we share stories about some of the just ridiculous things that go on in agency that are just so funny when I look back. I'm really glad I was there when that happened, definitely. Or whatever it might be.
It's all part of what makes you what it is. So, but it comes with everything's got a shelf life, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you need to either work out what's going to be best for you and your family. And like I said, this was never about me. This was about the wife, this was about the kids, this was about building something that one day hopefully my little girl and my little boy want to pick up and carry on with as well, and give them a way to build their quality of life to a decent level and perhaps carry the name on.
And they'll be phoning up an elderly Scott Gunn and asking for...
Scott's rocking in his chair in Margate with white hair.
Oh, how funny. Well, I hope so, mate. I hope so. Well, listen, Tony, that was well worth the drive. So thanks ever such a lot. It's great to see you and see how your business is going, mate. And you're just one of the top examples of what someone can achieve at eXp, mate. So congratulations.